All right, welcome back, everybody. Investors closely watching the latest developments in the Middle East. Oil continues to be the main focus, and this morning, WTI is up by more than 4%, back above $94 a barrel. Brent is up by about 4.5% to $106.91 a barrel. It's all coming after Iran dismissed a U.S. ceasefire plan, and we're getting closer to the end of the deadline that the president had extended at the beginning of the week. Joining us right now is Kyle Bass. He is Roquefort Ventures CEO. And Kyle, thanks for coming in today.
Great to be here.
All right, mush all of this up, everything we're watching right now. How do you see it? How's it playing out? What's the impact? What do you believe? What do you not believe? We were talking yesterday, Joe mentioned the Wall Street Journal op-ed about the fog of diplomacy. It's a tough thing to try and trade through.
Yeah. I mean, look, I also your guest, the Medal of Honor recipient earlier today, talking about how
Colonel Jack
there aren't any great outcomes. There's no defined plan. Look, the plan has been to take 12 or more nukes off the table, right? Mm-hmm. The Iranians have made 900 pounds of highly enriched uranium. Yeah. And to go from 60 to 90% only takes a couple of weeks. So they're essentially there. So what the Trump administration has done is taken 12 nuclear bombs off the table. War is not easy. It's not predictable. But we had a mission. We had to do it.
Well, wait a second. That's a different mission, though. Finding the enriched uranium. Is that has to be accomplished before we can come out? Because that's probably going to take boots on the ground, right?
Yeah. We're going to leave with that uranium. We know where it is, we think. But again, because it's highly enriched, it's not going to be that difficult for us to find.
Just you can measure it from a radiation.
And again, we follow it very closely. But that's one of the objectives. There was no easy button on the oil side. Yeah. It takes 25 to 28 days for seaborne oil to make its way to Asia from the Strait. That's about now. So you see the Brent WTI spread at about 13. I think you're going to see Brent at 150. And that you're going to see that spread widen more, just because the facts of the matter and where the crude is and how much Asia needs on a daily basis. But again,
to get to Brent at 150, you think that takes how long? Because this is kind of guesswork as to how long this will take for this operation.
Yeah, look, I think the operation takes a few more weeks. And I think that, again, the seaborne, we're 26, 27 days in. Mm-hmm. So the seaborne deliveries that are getting to Asia are the deliveries that happened pre-war. So now
none of the crunch is actually hit.
Now we'll see what happens. Yeah. And it's interesting. It's created strange bedfellows with China and the United States, right? China has a huge amount of its crude transiting the Strait. The U.S. doesn't want to see higher oil prices, and yet here we are. So, when you see Trump's outreach to Xi, again, a strange bedfellow and a strange moment.
I guess I would ask how confident you are that getting the enriched uranium is an end goal that we will see through.
Yeah, and I want to back up. During the JCPOA, and Trump pulled us out of the JCPOA, and the other side, oh, that's very irresponsible. Iran was lying. Iran wasn't living up to their end of the JCPOA. We had to pull out of that particular agreement, and it's obvious they were lying because now they have 900 pounds of highly enriched uranium. And you don't need that for a conventional reactor to generate power. So we have to go get that. Right, that has to happen.
Reopening the Strait, you think will also take just a matter of weeks? I mean, some of these goals it's complicated to be able to get to that point in a matter of weeks.
And look, the other thing that's important is when you shut in an oil field, like if your storage is full and the oil field itself from the midstream and the transport has to shut down because it's full, mm-hmm. You can't just flip a switch and turn it back on. There's a degradation in the operational capacity of those assets, and so it's going to be a long time. Prices will be a lot higher for a long time, in my opinion. We've only been replacing about 7% of global crude reserves. Mm-hmm. Call it last 10 years before the last two. We were used to replace like 80, 90, 100% of the reserves because the whole world believes we're going to electrification. Mm-hmm. We have been irresponsible in our allocation of applying capital to both hydrocarbons and wind and solar and all of the things that China wants us to do. Now, thank God we're producing what we're producing in America. Thank God we are the biggest hydrocarbon producer in the world. today, and that we ran parallel paths. You know, Europe certainly didn't. The UK didn't. They should have, right? And they should now. They have resources. They should operate in a dual fashion. You know, because you look at China, you know, we're all talking about how much solar and wind and how they're electrifying everything. They built 90 gigawatts of coal-fired production last year alone. That's more than the entire Texas grid, right? They did 2.5 gigs of nuclear, 90 gigawatts of coal, and then they tell us how much solar they're installing. It's the great rope-a-dope. That makes them functionally relevant on the world stage for energy when they're really just an energy net taker.
So if we reopen the strait and control it and get the uranium, one of the goals is not a regime change then, because then our goals aren't the same as the Saudis and the UAE, because the UAE, one of their people yesterday, I was watching the interview, they want a different, they want these guys going.
But can you get to your goal of reopening the strait if you don't have a regime change?
Well,
I guess would be the question.
Well, look, let's say we take Card Island, where all of the Iranian crude rolls through.
Take, you mean blow up?
No, like take control. Okay. Like in Venezuela, we took control of the oil marketing, and we set up, you know, an account for the next government, and so the oil proceeds go there. The United States has no interest in keeping that money. If we end up controlling the cash flow of the IRGC and the Iranian government, it's an interesting thing for us to do, because, you know, they have a GDP of, you know, let's just say GDP per capita is sub-Saharan African levels now. It's below $5,000 a person. You know, there are 90 million people there. If all of a sudden we control the government's cash flow, it brings about change very quickly. A couple of other things that are happening behind the scenes is we are seizing IRGC assets all over the world. Haven't made it to the press yet, but this is something that CENTCOM's commander is working very closely with the financial authorities here in America and doing a great job. So there is a plan. It's a thoughtful plan. We have intended objectives that we're going to reach, and I think all of the rhetoric surrounding it is somewhat laughable. If you actually just took 30 steps back and saw we have neutered the #1 drug distribution point in the world, which is Venezuela. We have told Sean Baum in Mexico, get your act together, stop sending fentanyl to us, or we're coming in.
You're so optimistic. Do you care how it's covered in mainstream media and what you hear from Democrats at this point? Does it help or hurt?
I mean, look, I do care.
Democrats are going to Democrat no matter what.
Democrats,
media is going to media.
Politicians are going to politics.
Yeah, media is going to media.
Yeah, I know. But it's the narrative is so bad that there's got to be some truth in there.
Kyle, hold that thought.
Sure.
We've got jobless claims that are coming up right after a very quick break. We're going to come back to Kyle Bass after we get those numbers. Ahead of those numbers, though, take a look at where the Kalshi users stand on this. The consensus estimate is 210,000. 35% think it will be higher than 215,000. We'll have the real number right after this break.
We are just about a half minute away from jobless claims. We've improved a little. We were down more than 400 points on the Dow at one point, but these are pretty significant numbers in the red and giving back a lot of what we gained from yesterday. Let's take a look at the Treasuries. 437 right now. Rick Santelli is standing by at the CME in Chicago on opening day. You got teams in Chicago, don't you, Rick? Rick, the numbers, please.
Yeah, we have a few teams in Chicago, although I think they're going to get rained out today. Well, here we go. This is initial claims for the week ending March 21, expecting 210,000-ish. And boy, does the market deliver 210,000 right on the nose. And how does that stack up? Well, our last look was 205,000, no revision yet. And the month before that was 213,000. So we fit right in the middle there. And do keep in mind, these numbers are historically low. Consider this, is that 190,000 is the last look that's in the context of the current time we live in. That was in 2022. Prior to that, you're going back to 1969. These are low numbers. On continuing claims, 1,819,000, always a week in arrears. This is the week ending March 14th. That's about 30,000 less than we were expecting. A subtle revision in the rearview mirror. 1,819,000, that would be the lightest going back a ways. Let's see, 19. We're going all the way back to May of 24 to find a smaller number. That's pretty incredible in and of itself. I mean, if you look at all of 2026, Joe, we're all under 1.9 million. The last time we were at or above 1.9 million was the very last week of 2025. Just roughly 4-week moving average probably coming in right around 211,000-ish. So we're pretty much right on top of it. Yields are coming down a little bit. High water mark 444 intraday on a 10-year. You want to pay attention to that. Below the market breakouts to the back to the downside, any kind of close under 430. We're kind of in this no man's land in 10s where we're probably going to play between the mid 430s and 4.5%. So 4.5, 430 on a closing basis, either direction. Look for some follow through. We're obviously following crude oil, and I really like Mr. Bass's comments today with regard to giving me some ability to kind of reconcile the headlines, what executives are saying, what the back months contango are saying in crude oil. It seems pretty darn complex all in all. But I'll tell you what, I'm making good notes with a lot of names because when all of this sifts through and gets sorted out, I want to see, exactly who was a little bit, too aggressive in their calls, who had it right, because this is a very tough one considering the logistics. Oil isn't necessarily like corn and wheat where, if something gets screwed up, you have to wait a whole growing season. But it is definitely something more than the financial markets, which make quick adjustments, and something less than, something like a grain commodity. So it's going to be interesting to watch how this proceeds.
You took a lot of receipts during the tariff discussions, too, and came back and threw it in people's faces that said stuff. You do that a lot, Rick. It's not very nice.
Well, listen, because to me, it's about making our viewers and listeners some money, okay? So I care about what the market
you need to
does.
be a journalist and express skepticism about the market going up and about, you can't possibly, just try to help people make the right decision.
But it isn't really skepticism about the market. If we're going to be honest here,
no,
it's not skepticism
I'm channeling
about
somebody
the market.
else. I'm kidding.
It's skepticism about the political landscape. And it's really sad that there are Americans out there who aren't really, listen, whether you believe in this cause or not, we're there, we're doing something, American lives are at risk. Come on, people, where's your patriotism? You might not like the president, but our military is a great military, and anybody out there with grandkids, I have a feeling Mr. Bass nailed it. It might not be easy to see or know a counterfactual or have a time machine and try to figure it all out. But in the end, nuclear bombs are not a good thing.
All right, very good. Thank you, Rick. Did you fly in from Houston?
Thank you, Rick. Flew in from Dallas, yes.
Oh, you can't get out of Houston. You fly commercial?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, but you didn't fly out of Houston.
No.
4.5 hour wait. We're going to talk later about that. The Center Federal.
Yeah, Dallas was fully open. And LaGuardia was nice. I mean, the ICE agents were doing a good job.
Yeah, but terrible what happened.
I went up and talked to a few of them. They're doing a fine job.
Kyle Bass again, joining us to talk more about what he's been seeing play out on the geopolitical landscape. And Kyle, I know you do all of this because you care about the country, but you're also an investor. So how do you set up based on what you believe is happening? What do you do?
Yeah, I think when you look at defense spending as a percentage of GDP, we'll spend about $1 trillion this year on defense. GDP about 31 trillion. So think about a little bit more than 3% of GDP. If you look back through world history, let's say U.S. history all the way back to World War II, in the Cold War, we were spending 7 or 8% of GDP. During Vietnam and Korea, we spent 11. During the Gulf Wars, maybe 6.5, 7. In 1945, we spent more than 40% of GDP on defense because we had to win.
Yeah.
So the numbers that you're seeing now are just the beginning. And what you're going to see in the next decade is you're going to see a lot more capital applied to attritable, lower cost, very efficient munitions, not the tanks and planes
You're talking drones.
Before. I'm talking about drones, hypersonics, things where today we're strategically overmatched by China. The men and women in America that are entrepreneurial, I've been spending a lot of time with Secretary Hegseth on his Arsenal America tour, and We're in partnership now with the Department of War to lend money to companies that we want to see their balance sheets grow quickly so they can deliver into what we're going to be doing given the orders. You know, there's supplemental budget that's coming through, whether it's 50 or 150 billion, somewhere in there. Almost all of that's for munitions. And when you look at the team in the Department of War, underneath you have Secretary Hegseth on one side, you have DepSec Feinberg on the other from Cerberus. You have the most competent deal makers that have ever sat in those seats. And Feinberg's team with George Kalatides and Ryan Lindner and these guys, they are the ones doing all of the deals for critical minerals, for solid rocket motors. And it is a quasi-Manhattan project that's happening behind the scenes today, where there's a private capital component, there's a public capital component. And behind the scenes, we're on wartime footing. Out here in the media, it's just another day.
Those are long-term bets, though. What happens if there's a change in the administration? Do you get out of those bets pretty quickly? No.
I think, again, when you think about who stood up these programs, under the Biden administration, they created the Office of Strategic Capital, right? We had to rid our supply chains, and the F-35 and some of our weapons programs had sole source Chinese parts in them. You can't even make that up, right? So white papers were written, things got done, and it happened under a Democratic administration, and then the Trump administration has just turbocharged it. You know, Biden funded OSC with $2 billion in year one, $6 billion in year two, and now there's $200 billion.
So you think this is the future no matter what happens politically? Yeah,
our defense is our defense. So the answer is yes. And I think you're going to see Europe, as you know, NATO got to 2% of GDP. A few countries didn't, but collectively they got there. Yeah. And now they're talking, NATO Secretary General Rutte is saying we should be talking 5% of GDP. He's right. Yeah. So.
Who are the, can you name any of these companies? I would assume they're privately held, they're smaller companies.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, what's beautiful about all of this is, I spent a lot of time in global macro, and now I'm spending a lot of time trying to make sure our defense and our offense is in the right spot. But going around meeting 22-year-old kids that are making new balloons that can overwhelm China's air defenses if we just make 30,000 of them, and this kid's 22 years old. And I say kid because he is a genius kid. And then, another company, Divergent, which we're heavily invested in, they can 3D print a cruise missile every 2 hours, right? And today, Raytheon's delivering 5 Tomahawks per month, 60 a year. Yeah. But in this Iranian conflict, I bet we use 1,500 Tomahawks, right? And 60 a year is what we're delivering in. So I think what you're going to see is you're going to see a lot come out of the president, and a lot that's going to come out of the Department of War that jumps the shark in the way that we used to do things. We used to have this centrally planned Soviet-style system of acquisition. Yeah. That's all changing. And if we let America's best and brightest rise to the top, we will absolutely overmatch China on everything that we're focused on, and it won't cost that much money in the grand scheme of things.
Kevin Zinger?
Yeah, Kevin Zinger and Lucas, two a father-son Yale engineering team has come up with.
Someone's been telling me we got to have Kevin on. 3D printed cruise missile.
Yeah. Phenomenal.
You can book them for it. You can get them to come on.
Oh, wow. They'll be here whenever you want them here.
Kyle Bass, thank you for joining us today. It's good to see you.
Pleasure being here.
All right, still to come, your package may cost you a little more to ship.